Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to join us. You're very welcome to today's launch at the DCU Access to the Workplace programme for 2022. My name is Jason Sherlock. I'm Director of Development at DCU Educational Trust, and I will be helping coordinate today's discussion on creating workplaces where talent belongs. We have an incredible lineup of speakers for you, including CEO of ESW, formerly eShopWorld, and Business Person of the Year in 2020 at the Business and Finance Awards, Tommy Kelly, DCU Access student Natasha Maimba, and Stephen Colgan, DCU Access graduate and solicitor at DWF. All of them have helpful insights into creating workplaces where employees feel they belong. As you listen to each speaker, you will also hear the incredible impact that DCU's Access to the Workplace program has not only on DCU Access students, but also on the participating companies too. Belonging is an essential element of employee engagement. Creating a sense of belonging at work can have a huge impact on employee well-being, satisfaction, and retention. The DCU Access to the Workplace program assists organizations to create workplaces where everyone belongs, no matter who they are or where they come from. During this session, we encourage you to ask questions and to use the chat function to share your thoughts, as there will be a Q&A at the end of the session with all the speakers here today. Please also feel free to post on social media using the hashtag ATTW2022. You can tag @DCU Access and @DCU Ed Trust. We look forward to seeing your posts about the event. To formally begin today's proceedings, we are honored to be joined by President of DCU, Professor Derek Yo.
Thank you very much, Jason, for that warm welcome, and welcome to everybody to the Helix. My only regret is that you're not here with us in person today. We've had Storm Barra across the country. We can still hear his legacy behind us, and I hope that all your roofs are intact. But it's wonderful to have you here today for the launch of the Access to the Workplace program for 2022. I'm delighted to welcome in the room here in the Helix, but also watching at home as well, a wide range of organizations, enterprises and friends who are joining us for this important day. I'd like to welcome you to our current Access programs, to explain what they're at, and also to introduce some of our partner companies today. I'm also pleased to welcome those of you who are exploring the idea of access to the workplace. And I know that the discussion later on will bring home really clearly the enormous difference that the program can make in the lives of our students, but also in your own companies and workplaces. I'd like to welcome our special guests that Jason introduced already, Tommy, Stephen and Samantha. So thank you, and we look forward to our discussion later. So today's event the purpose of it is really to give you a sense of what the program is about, its purpose, and really to showcase the massive impact that it can make on student lives and on your own companies. In a nutshell, the Access to the Workplace gives our exceptional access students professional work experience and opportunities that otherwise they would not have had without your cooperation and support. And it also gives companies an opportunity to increase the diversity and, by extension then, the talent, the insight and just the potential of their workplace. DCU is committed to the concept of access, that from the very foundation of the university, we sought to be defined not by the people we exclude, but rather by the people that we include. DCU is a special place. I would say that as president, but it is special because we are very much a place-based university. We belong to this place. We belong to the country. We have a patriotic duty and drive to make this a better place. We're also a university that puts people first. That's fundamentally what we're about. We're about transforming lives and societies through the development of talent and the development of our people, and by extension, the country and our planet. Widening participation is at the heart of what we do here. And Dublin City University is ranked number 23 in the world for our approach to widening access and participation in higher education and, by extension, eradicating poverty. We're exceptionally proud of that and grateful to yourselves for making that possible. DCU is central to our university, and access is central to what we do. That at the university, we have our largest access program in Ireland, the oldest and the largest. There are currently nearly 1,200 access students enrolled as undergraduates at DCU. And the good news is that 98% of access students graduate from our university with a high honours degree in 2021. Of all of that, we're exceptionally proud. And of course, none of that would be possible without the collaboration of yourselves and without the support of yourselves. As I said at the beginning, that the Access to the Workplace programme is a win-win, that it certainly benefits the students and it benefits the host companies and supporters. I'm really delighted to open proceedings today. I won't come between yourselves and the main event. And I know that some of the discussion will centre on the ways in which the programme has been expanded and changed. And I think that one of the great changes that we've introducing for next year is that 10% of the students on the programme will be students who are neurodiverse. That's like incredible for us. We're proud to have been considered Ireland's first autism-friendly university, but badges and firsts mean nothing if they don't deliver in the long term. So this is a very kind of welcome innovation, and I know it'll make an enormous impact. We're very grateful too to our partners in Deloitte, who worked with the business school last year to develop remote-based programming for access to the workplace, and that's been kind of hugely important for us. So if you're an existing partner, can I say thank you? If you're thinking about it, I'd say come on in and welcome. That I hope that after today's event that more people will be encouraged to sign up. Again, Jason has welcomed our panel. I'd just like to reiterate that welcome and to open the floor now to the discussion. So welcome and thank you very much again.
Thank you, Professor Keogh, for those really inspiring words. You've demonstrated the impact of Access to the Workplace programme, not only for DCU Access students, but DCU itself. Thanks again for your support and your time. Now I would like to welcome CEO of ESW, formerly eShopWorld, Tommy Kelly. Tommy will be in conversation with Samantha McCaughrean, business editor at the Sunday Independent, about how ESW have created a culture of belonging for their employees.
So welcome, you're very welcome, Tommy.
Good morning, thank you.
So ESW, it's a huge Irish success story, one of the fastest growing companies in the country. Revenues at an incredible €1.5 billion at the moment. Customers like Nike, Victoria's Secret, Calvin Klein. Just tell us a little bit about how the company started and maybe a bit about yourself as well.
So a little bit of background on myself. I grew up in North County Dublin here. Farmer son, got into the sort of supply chain business, logistics business in the late 80s and sort of evolved from there. In 2006, that company was acquired by a large public multinational. And I actually got involved in being a CEO, original CEO, excuse me, for that company. And that sort of brought me into the world of e-commerce, right? Really, we were helping, we were moving product for large brands at that stage. And it was really the early stages of moving product, e-commerce product, right? And typically back in the 2010 plus, B2C product moved very similar as B2B moved, right? So when I say B2B, business to business. So when the early days of the internet shopping, whatever, there wasn't really a solution thought about how people would shop across borders, right? So we started to think about how we could really allow an international shopper have a really sort of adequate or a satisfactory shopping experience with a large, at the beginning, large US brands, right? So that was sort of I suppose, the seeding of the business. And really, if you think about 2010 to now, shopper expectation has changed dramatically. You know, it has to be a super smooth, frictionless experience. And really from a brands want to get really very close and own their consumers. So I suppose it was solving two issues. It was making sure that the brand equity in the international markets was really properly delivered to the consumer as a shopper. And secondly, that the shopper was getting a very transparent, holistic experience. So I suppose that was the goal. I won't get into the details, but it's a complex piece of work to solve that.
But if you're shopping on Nike or something, you probably don't even know you're
exactly,
behind it all. Yeah.
So what we do effectively is ensure that if you're, whether it be in Russia or whether it be in Australia or France, that you're seeing traditionally what you would expect to see as a French or Russian shopper, which will be best in class in that market. And that goes from payments, language, right through to delivery experience and everything.
And who would have predicted the last couple of years how much online shopping we would be doing? But presumably, you know, those kind of numbers that you're putting through in revenues, your workforce has grown substantially then over the last decade or so.
Yeah, look, today we have a workforce of over 600 people. That's predicted to grow another 500 over the next couple of years. Like in the pandemic alone, it'll come up probably later, we've hired 200 people during the pandemic, right? So, you know, when you talk about sort of the different ways of working, we'll bring into that discussion. But we continue to grow. I think online shopping was growing anyway. It certainly accelerated. We were seeing, 40, 50% year-on-year growth pre-pandemic. Yes, we got a bit of a bounce with the pandemic, but we're seeing that behavioral change staying, right? So, and I think we've seen a lot broader age demographics shopping online too. So certainly it's been a change, but for the most part, what we're seeing is that it's here to stay for sure.
And your roots are North County Dublin. Did
Sure.
you travel too far to set up the business, or are you Dublin based?
So our headquarters here in Dublin. The business today is based in US, it's based here in Dublin, it's based in UK, it's based in Europe, and it's based in Asia. So like we've when we talk about to get diversity and whatever, like we have a global footprint and a global footprint of people and different sort of work practices and sort of environments in all of those different regions.
So when you started off the company and, presumably it was, a handful of people, but as you grew, was diversity and inclusion something that you deliberately baked into the company from early on, or was it something you sort of deliberately made sure was part of your strategy? Yeah,
I would say to you openly, it was both. When we had 100 people, our first 100 people, I think we had 28 to 30 different nationalities within that first 100, right? So by its nature, we grew with a huge diversity, and that need for that whole belonging and the inclusiveness in the thing. So that was very fortunate for us. I think that it happened that way. I think also, Dublin and the type of talent pool that we're chasing is certainly it's multicultural, it's and multi-diverse. So I think we've been fortunate to be able to build on that, but clearly we've had to invest in it. We do, and I think what we find is that the more you invest, the better the outcome for everybody. And we've taken a very conscious decision back from 2018 on to make sure that we, right from the time the engagement with our employees, how they're inducted, the well-being that we create in the business, and all of that is geared around having that right working environment for people.
And you were bought out by an international group, La Poste earlier in the year. Does that change your view of diversity, being a part of a bigger group? Does it help the fact that you, from an early stage, were more inclusive and diverse now that you're owned by another
Absolutely, yeah. And I think all companies today recognize the requirement, and whether it be, Group La Poste, whether it be ESW. In ESW, we very much run as a unit, right? So I think we have the ability to track our own destiny, but also have the advantage of looking at the wider experience of the larger group. So if you take a company like Group La Poste, a $30 billion business, like very, very adapt to that diversification that's needed in work society.
So a challenge that a lot of companies face, there were many challenges last year, but with hiring in new people, and maybe they'd never met, it was a lot done by Zoom. But when it comes to your diversity and inclusion program, did that become more challenging? Because I know you would hold a lot of events, for example, in person, Pride Month and International Women's Day. You'd be quite active in those spaces, yes. But it's harder to do that when you're all sitting in your home, your office, or your bedroom.
Well, I think that's where the extra effort needed to come in. And as I said, we employed an additional 200 people during the pandemic, and it needed that time and investment, of the team to ensure, number one, that we got the right induction program, but secondly, that people settled in, and as you rightly say, pre-pandemic, people would come to the office, they'd meet people, there'd be a natural bonding element going on. So there was a lot more work needed, and also too about the wellness of people. I think remote for some people is different than remote for other people. So there was a lot of energy and effort put into how we thought about, different age demographic, different family situations, different living environments. So it's not a one size fits all. So fairness to the team sort of scaled up and skilled up and got many programs running. Some went better than others, but in the main, all of those added some value and continue to, and that's continuously evolving as well.
And do you think a hybrid future, which is what everyone's talking about, hopefully we'll get to that stage sooner rather than later, but will that in the long term change how you deal with hiring people, attracting talent, and integrating different types of people into a very large workforce?
Yeah, my own personal opinion is that, so when we talk about pandemic arrived, we were remote within 2 or 3 days, right? So it was just a requirement. And thankfully, in our business, that was doable. So we could very quickly, deploy the resources and get people remotely, effectively working remotely, right? And as I said to you earlier, that meant different things for different people, right? So we've seen, I'd say minimal challenges. And I think for a number of reasons, we put good support mechanisms, but we had to adopt what remote or what environment meant for different people. And then when people needed some different sort of support infrastructures, we had to put those in place, et cetera, et cetera. But for us, it was successful deployment, but we had to build on it. And then I think as we look at different departments and different geographies and different, as I said earlier, working at home environments versus age demographic versus shared accommodation, all of those things have to be taken into. So I think the remote working is evolving. And I think it means different things for different companies, right? So we continue to look and to monitor and to put the mechanisms in behind that ensures that it's good for all our team members to make sure that they're getting the adequate support and that it's working for both ways effectively.
And the Access to Workplace program, you've been supporting that since 2019, and I believe you've had 2 interns as well. Mm-hmm. Why did you think it was important to support the program and get involved in it?
Look, I think it's people talk about the opportunity. I think success, sort of even in our business, right, gives people the opportunity to create success for other people. I was introduced to by Jason. I came to an event here. I have to be honest with you, that event changed. I listened to some of the students and, I seen the impact it was having on the students. But also to be, and I suppose the biggest thing for me was the determination of some of those people that had come through the programs, right? People talk about the challenges within business, but the challenges for a lot of these students to get into these programs, to work through them and be successful coming out of it. Like it's a fantastic achievement. So for me, it was a great event. It was an eye opener in one sense, but secondly, you just see the massive difference you can make. And I think everybody needs support, whether it be in some shape or form. And I think what's been happening here is it's a very worthy cause, and there's a very tangible result. You see the result at the end, right? And for me, you know, you get introduced to a lot of programs, but this, I suppose, was one that, you know, Jason probably brought it for the right reasons, but it made a massive difference to the way that I thought about how you can add value both in that area. I think it's a very worthy cause, effectively.
Is there any reason you think some companies might be slow to sign up? May they feel it's too challenging, or could you explain why you think it's actually something that's reasonably straightforward to implement, or, you know?
Yeah, I think it's straightforward to implement. You know, I think the question we all, you know, when it comes, like, it's not that difficult to take in graduates, that's for sure, right? And I think if once you invest the time, as you did say, remotely certainly will be a little bit more challenging for sure. But I think to take on graduates is not a big challenge. We try to do that, and we're trying to increase our numbers every year that we take on. But you know, I think what people don't realize, it's a two-way street. Like when I look at our graduate programs today, we retain a lot of those graduates, and you know, we get a very high quality sort of end result as a contributor to the workforce post these programs.
And do you think it offers some benefits to the companies as well?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think it also demonstrates to other employees that, look, we're a very open society. You know, that everybody has the opportunity to enter the environment, and they should. And I think what you do see on the ground, there's a huge support, I think, across, you know, everybody that works within the business behind these initiatives. So everybody, if anybody can contribute to help people to sort of get ahead or to enhance what they're doing, that can only be positive.
And have you seen firsthand how students or interns grow into the role and benefit from the connections they make and the firsthand experience that they get?
I would honestly say to you that you know, quite a significant number of our sort of people in supervisor leadership roles today have come through the graduate program, right? And you know, I do be amazed every couple of years you see somebody coming in, you know, they're new, they're nervous, they're junior, yeah, and then you see them, you know, delivering key actions and key roles in the business, and that's very satisfying. So I think not only for them, but I think even for the people that work in the business to know there's opportunity for everybody in the business.
Do you think in the future with the hybrid environment, which is, as you say, is quite likely, will that open opportunities for some people who mightn't have been comfortable working full-time in office, or may it limit opportunities for some people?
No, I think it'll enhance opportunity for some people, like whether it be, you know, sort of physical disabilities, whatever. There'll be different, you know, ways of helping and opening up the working environment, right? And I think it gives a lot of opportunity even for people, family, you know, whatever the people have as specific requirements within their work environment. I genuinely think companies don't really care about where, it's what's done, right? And I think what the pandemic has proved is that if you create the right sort of environment to work remotely or whatever, that can be achieved very well.
That's great. Thanks very much for sharing those insights with us, Tommy.
Thanks, Tommy, and thanks, Samantha, for such an engaging conversation. It's great to hear such a progressive organisation being so positive about the DCU Access to the Workplace programme, and also that, Tommy, you identified with the DCU Access students, and particularly their determination to be successful. So with that in mind, I'd like to give the thoughts of some of our DCU Access students. I would now like to introduce you to this afternoon's second speaker, DCU Law and Society and Access student, Natasha Maimba. Natasha completed an Access to the Workplace internship with Maples and Calder, the law firm of the Maples Group in Dublin last summer. Natasha has an incredibly empowering story, so I'll hand it over to Natasha to share her experience as an Access to the Workplace student.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. My name is Natasha Maimba, and I am a final year law student. And with pride, I can say that I am also an Access student here at DCU. I was born in the UK to an immigrant mother who juggled a full-time job, a full-time bachelor's degree, as well as being a mother. And when my father and mother and I boarded a plane back home to Zimbabwe, my parents envisaged a life where their hard work would give myself and my brother the most joyful upbringing that parents could only hope for. However, the political system in Zimbabwe did not look too kindly on our dreams, and we were forced to seek asylum in Ireland when I was 9 years old. While my parents' dreams had been shattered, my mother refused to allow one candle of hope to die out. That was education. My childhood was littered with debates and discussions that did not shy away from the realities my family faced. My life in direct provision, my experience being a part of a minority, and my parents' financial difficulties might have been enough to give up, but I had bigger dreams. I've always had a natural curiosity. This is one of the main reasons that I chose to study law. I believed that it was a discipline where my talents could truly shine. However, this is as far as my knowledge of law went. The only lawyer that I knew was Judge Judy. I knew nothing about the substance of law in general. I remember leaving my first law lecture convinced I had chosen the wrong course. It seemed as if everyone either had a parent that was a lawyer or had experience in the legal sphere. I had never felt so inadequate in my life. To soothe the dreams that seemed to be crumbling in my hands that day, I remembered the words spoken at my Access orientation, that Access students who enter DCU consistently outperform their peers in academic achievements. I have never held so tightly to a statement in my life. And while the Access to the Workplace program, and through the Access to the Workplace program, I finally saw myself reflected in those statistics. To be completely honest, my expectations of the program were quite low. The Access orientation was an amazing opportunity to get to know the campus and make friends before the academic year commenced. However, I expected this to be the most useful program offered by the Access service. But I can honestly say that the Access to the Workplace program exceeded my expectations. And without the support, I would still be unsure about my future career. Furthermore, I can and will attribute every success in my professional, personal, and future endeavors to the opportunities I got through the Access to the Workplace program. The Access to the Workplace program looks like a service which simply links Access students to amazing internship opportunities. But if you were to ask many of the Access students who were able to partake in the program, they would agree that so much more was offered. The program began in the second semester of my second year. We were encouraged to attend regular sessions, which aimed to equip us with the skills we would need to best present ourselves to potential employers. This included training sessions on presentation skills, CV and cover letter sessions, interview skills, and work etiquette sessions. After these sessions, we were given feedback on our CVs, our interview skills, and even on potential outfits we might wear in an interview. While some of this may seem like basic knowledge, oftentimes Access students have never seen an office, a professional environment, and more than likely, we don't have parents who can help us with this either. I felt extremely understood in this way, and really felt as if the team behind the program had taken the time to tailor the service to our needs. At this stage, I was matched with Maples and Calder, a law firm in Dublin. Before my interview, I was given a prep talk that made me feel supported throughout the process. And when I began the internship, the Access team kept in touch with me to make sure that I was adjusting well. One standout aspect of the program is that it feels customized to you. You feel very important. This definitely gives you the confidence and a measure of reassurance that you need. My internship at Maples was my first legal internship. And while I felt as if I wasn't as knowledgeable as my peers, I knew that I had been matched the perfect company. The work environment in the firm was exciting, dispelling the stigmas associated with law firms. At the same time, everyone from the trainees to the partners made me feel comfortable enough to show off my personality. Overall, my internship was highly successful. And because of this perfect match, I was offered a trainee solicitor contract with Maples. Being able to say that I now have a career path ahead of me would not have been possible without this opportunity. Without the internship, I probably would have spent my summer before final year working a part-time job, worrying about what I would do after my final year. While I'm grateful to have this trainee contract, the connections I built within the firm, with people within the legal sphere, will always be the most invaluable gift given to me. My success story is the story of many Access students here at DCU. As I stated earlier, we outperform our peers in terms of academia. Additionally, we have more drive, passion, and motivation. My father always says that it is through experience that character is built. And where better to find people with good character, empathy, curiosity, patience, kindness, than in someone who understands being on the fringes of society. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Natasha, for sharing your story today. I'm sure you can all agree that Natasha is a remarkable student with drive and commitment, and a great example of how the DCU Access to the Workplace program helps DCU Access students transform potential. Just a quick reminder, if you do have any questions, feel free to plug them into the chat function. For our next segment, I'd like to introduce Stephen Colgan, DCU Access graduate and solicitor at DWF, who will speak on his experience of the DCU Access to the Workplace program and how it has contributed to creating a workplace of belonging at DWF and what it means as an employee.
Thanks very much for the introduction, Jason, and particularly thank you very much to Natasha for her words. She's going to be a great addition to the profession once she qualifies. Just by way of introduction, obviously my name is Stephen Colgan. I'm a solicitor with DWF, and to give you some background about myself, I was born in London but shortly returned home afterwards once my mother and father got divorced, and we settled in Ballymun, which, as I'm sure many of you know, is an area traditionally associated with high drug problems, social issues and unemployment. But thanks to the experience I had with my own amazing mother growing up, my upbringing was quite normal and I actually came out of it quite well. She made sure that I attended good schools, and I went to St. Patrick's in Drumcondra and St. Aidan's right next door, where I got a great education and did Leaving Cert. But following that, I felt a bit lost and I didn't really know where I wanted to go in life. So I took a year out and ultimately ended up doing a PLC course in business and law, where I decided to pursue a degree there in economics, politics and law in DCU. During this course, I found out about the DCU's Access program and the supports that it offers to students from disadvantaged backgrounds who are transitioning into third level education. I applied and thankfully I was accepted, and I have to say throughout my time at DCU, the Access program was an extremely valuable resource to me, a resource that I might quite honestly not have gotten through the degree without, thanks to their financial, education and social supports. But with an aspiring career in law in mind, I guess you can say the most important benefit I received was the opportunity to do an internship with A&O Goodbody, which is obviously one of Ireland's top law firms. This opportunity was, I think, a pilot program to the Access to the Workplace initiative, which hadn't come into existence at that time. But unfortunately, many students don't get this opportunity. As I'm sure many of you know, a lot of the legal profession is traditionally associated with high barriers to entry. And in the past, social and education connections were traditionally seen as important factors when obtaining positions with top law firms. Improvements have been made over time, but these barriers still exist today as students come from socially disadvantaged backgrounds often face bias in the hiring process. But I think it's safe to say that without that initial introduction made by the Access program, it's highly unlikely that I would have successfully obtained an internship in a top law firm by myself. Not through any fault of my own, I just think that my CV would not have stood out amongst the tide of CVs that these law firms receive. Whether it's the school they attended, their Leaving Cert points, or the college course, I think students from disadvantaged backgrounds often struggle to make their accreditations and qualifications stand out in the hiring process. However, this doesn't mean they're not quality candidates. even if a student is lucky enough to obtain an internship with a firm, they can face a myriad of new issues once they walk through the door. I think it's not uncommon that many of their colleagues come from similar backgrounds and have similar social networks. In my own experience in law firms, I found that this is slightly intimidating. And for example, on my first internship, when I realized many of the other interns attended fee-paying schools and knew several solicitors and partners on a first-name basis, I was a bit intimidated. And I felt a little bit on the back foot from the get-go. I had a lot of anxiety, and a bit of imposter syndrome took over immediately. And I think in many ways, I felt like I didn't deserve to be there. And this affected my confidence, as I felt like I couldn't connect with a lot of my colleagues and peers. Because of my background, I was very insecure about this. But obviously on reflection, they were all lovely people. And over time, I've come to understand that there's no huge difference in ability. Some people just need a support structure that enables them to demonstrate their ability, feel valued and contribute in the workplace, and able to achieve their goals, which is something I feel like I've been lucky enough to have throughout my career, and particularly since I started working in DWF. I joined the firm in January 2020 in the height of the pandemic, but my decision-making process in that I didn't want to jump into the first role that became available to me. I wanted to find a place to commit my early career in a company which had goals and values which aligned with my own. During the interview process, I asked about the firm's diversity and inclusion policies, as social mobility is something which I deeply care about, and I wanted my employer to care about too. By a fortunate coincidence, my colleagues in the DWF Foundation had already reached out to the DCU about getting involved in the Access program. And when I joined, I was able to use my pre-existing relationship with DCU to push forward with developing a summer internship in DWF. So this summer, I'm happy to say we welcomed our first intern who worked closely with me and the wider team for 3 months. And I have to say it was an immense success, which had a big impact on me personally. I was able to just really appreciate somebody who came from the same position as me, and I recognized their insecurities and doubts, which I had at the beginning of my own legal career. I think it's safe to say that it's difficult for anybody to immediately feel a sense of belonging in the workplace when they're walking into a new role. But for students from disadvantaged backgrounds who may not have a family or social connection who've been through that experience to guide them, it can be especially daunting. But as mentor and buddy, I think I was able to reach out and offer that guidance and reassurance to our intern and remind them that despite an initial introduction through the Access program and the Access to the Workplace program, they were here on merit and can provide valuable contributions to their work and perspective. Sometimes all someone needs is to be sat down and spoken to in a way that makes them feel valued and included. These simple conversations can affect a person's confidence and sense of belonging immeasurably, and in a short period of time can just help them fit in so much better. It'll allow them to embrace the challenges of a new role as opposed to feeling intimidated or like an outsider. And as a former Access student and intern and myself, I was immensely proud to welcome our intern this summer from the DCU Access program. And I guess you could say my relationship has come full circle with the program itself. But having an Access to Workplace student also had a big impact on a lot of my colleagues, many of whom provided feedback about the high standard of work and diligence that they were able to complete. I think it's fair to say that some of them were even surprised that an Access student entering his final year in college without any prior legal experience was able to produce to such a high standard. And this may have challenged some of their own preconceptions about what students from disadvantaged backgrounds could ultimately achieve. But reflecting on the internship as a whole and conversations with my colleagues since, I think we're all a bit more aware of the need to eliminate a sense of outsiderness and harbour belonging in our workplace. We need to ensure that we take positive steps to promote inclusivity and support our colleagues to harbour that sense of belonging and make sure that everyone feels involved and welcome. Well, I think I can speak for the wider generation of my colleagues when I say that we want to work in diverse workspaces beside colleagues with different perspectives and insights, which can challenge you to consider an alternative viewpoint or come up with alternative solutions to modern problems. Nobody wants to work in a workplace with 20 carbon copies of themselves. And I think we've seen in the past that there are dangers in having groupthink in the boardroom and beyond, which is why it's one of the reasons I'm proud to work with DWF, which really is a company that promotes the opportunity to hire at every level for equal opportunities at every level. But maybe to conclude, I can just highlight some how essential programs like Access to the Workplace are. They're essential to level the playing fields for students who come from socially disadvantaged backgrounds by allowing them the same opportunity, which I was lucky enough to have, and gain that vital early experience in their careers, which can play a huge part in future roles and their own general confidence. But this early career experience can really help in getting to a position where I am now, where I've qualified as solicitor and have an immensely rewarding career. But Access to Workplace programs are also equally essential for employers. think it's very important that employers recognize that while their company may be open on paper to hiring someone from a diverse background, barriers to entry still exist. Sometimes these barriers may not be apparent, as it could be the student's own fear of rejection, a lack of knowledge of the application process, and many other reasons. Programs like the Access to the Workplace program reach out to bridge the gap that exists between student and employer. And it can, with genuine employer participation, they can reap huge benefits for both the company and students from disadvantaged backgrounds. It's important to recognize that there is a huge wealth of talent in Ireland, and a huge portion of that talent pool comes from people from socially diverse backgrounds. If employers want to utilize this wealth of talent, I think it's important that they look beyond their traditional hiring groups and participate in programs like Access to the Workplace, as they're vital for their company's growth going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen, for sharing your experience and insights as a former Access student, an employee and a mentor. Both of you are a testament to our Access program, and you also demonstrate why organizations need to strive for an environment of belonging in their organization. Before we close today's event, I'd like to invite Tommy, Stephen and Natasha to join myself and Samantha in answering any questions your guests might have on the Access to the Workplace program.
So just a couple of quick questions. Natasha, what would you say to companies which are considering participating in the Access to Workplace program for 2022?
I think that, you know, there's so much talent that unfortunately when you aren't from the same group as somebody, aren't from the same disadvantaged background as somebody, you don't really see the talent that they have. And there is so much talent within the sphere. I mean, we are diverse in where we come from, in the backgrounds that our parents had to go through, and we understand life from a different angle. And I think that can add to a company. It can bring in a lot of empathy. I mean, we're moving into a world now where we want, you know, we want more empathy for one another, and we want to understand one another. And I think you get that from people who maybe, you know, didn't grow up with very much. Yeah, so that's what I'd say.
And Tommy, Stephen mentioned there are some of the challenges people face, you know, the sense of being an outsider, and there's some barriers there. What can your company and other companies do to try and help people with that?
Well, look, I think that goes back to the core of it, the sense of belonging. You know, I think when somebody comes into a company, there shouldn't be any difference to their background or environment. Any of their orientation should be neutral. And I think that's what, you know, we've spent a lot of time in this, trying to ensure that it doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, what your social position is, or what your ethnic position is. So it's really, if you create the right environment, a lot of that dissipates very, very quickly. So I think that's one of the great gains that we have seen over the last few years in achieving that level of neutrality, and I'm talking about across all levels, and keeping that a very open and sort of fluid environment effectively.
And Stephen, would you have any thoughts on what organizations can do to improve how they communicate with Access students?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously it's individual to the organization. A lot of organizations make great strides in how they communicate, but communicating with Access students who are in the workplace, I think they just need to be aware that the student maybe just might need that additional support structure in place, take time to speak to them about their needs and what they need, and then do their best to facilitate it. But I think it is a two-way street, and students need to also communicate to employers maybe what they need as well, how to properly facilitate the relationship.
And lastly, Jason, for companies that are inspired from by what they've heard today, how can they find out more about the Access program?
Yeah, well, I think I hope everyone like myself feels really inspired and engaged by the contribution of the guys, and you can really see the value of the program, not only for individuals, but the organization. We as a trust will be delighted to hear from anyone, and they can contact us on ed.trust@dcu.ie, and we would obviously be happy to hear any thoughts or questions that guys might have. I might just bring things to a close. Firstly, I just want to thank all you guys for tuning in. It's really appreciated. Thank you to our existing participants and potentially our new participants. Your support is really appreciated. Also, Rethink Ireland through the Rethink Ireland Children and Youth Fund that allows the program to prosper. Hopefully, you guys have taken away some really insightful tips from a student's perspective and an organization's perspective as to why DCU Access to the Workplace program can make a big impact in your organization. It leaves me to say thank you to our panel and thank you for tuning in. Have a safe and peaceful Christmas. Slán.